Hi, it's Amy from Amy Designs, and today we are going to be finishing up our Batty Pumpkins Table Topper. This is the final video in this series. I do have videos for how to construct the star blocks, the bat blocks, and the pumpkin blocks, and I will link to all of those down in the description below. But today we are going to talk about all of the steps that you need to take to finish the quilt top for this table topper. So the first thing that we're going to do is start with one of our star blocks. This quilt or table topper is put together in a medallion style. So traditional quilts are typically put together in rows, and then those rows are sewn together. But this one, we are going to start with the center, and then we're going to keep building on around the edges of it. So the first place we start is right in the middle, and that is with our star block. Then you will need 4 of your background fabric. And in this case, I am swapping out my background fabric, which is this gray tone-on-tone fabric. And I am going to be accenting this sashing a little bit with a different print from this line. This line that I'm sewing with in this video is Spooky Schoolhouse by Melissa Mortensen. And it is such a cute line. So my fabric pieces are actually cut from a different fabric than the background. And that is noted in the pattern as an option to swap it out if you would like to add just another layer of interest to your pattern. The first thing that you're going to need to do is take 2 of these fabric pieces, and you are going to sew them on either side of your star block. So I like to have my fabrics facing towards the outside of the quilt. If you want to add some directionality to your quilt so that, like, if you're planning on hanging it on the wall, you may choose to swap the direction of some of these pieces. But the way the pattern is laid out is that all of the elements of it face to the outside. And that includes this the fabric, the prints in the fabrics that I'm going to use. So with these, because there is a directionality to them with these cute potion bottles, I am going to have them towards the outside. So I'm going to sew the top of these pieces to the 2 sides of my star. And then to finish up this round on our quilt, we are going to take the other 2 fabric pieces, and we are going to sew these fabric T pieces on either side. Now, again, in this pattern, I have swapped out these fabrics from the star fabric and swapped out the color to a different color. And again, that is noted in the pattern if you want to make that change. I wanted to bring in some of the cute pink in this line, and so I added these cute pink ghosts. So you will sew one on either side, and as the pattern states, you will press the seam allowances towards your fabric piece. And what this will do is help you nest the seams, when you go to sew it here. Because when you sew these 2 fabric pieces, you will press the seam allowances towards the sashing fabric. And then on these ones, that way your seam allowance is going this way. So when you have done these corner blocks with the seam allowance toward that centerpiece, they will be going the opposite direction, and that will help you nest those seams there. So you will sew these fabric T accent pieces on both sides of both of the other 2 fabric pieces, and then you are going to sew those onto either side of your star block to complete the first round. So I'm going to go do that sewing, and then I'll come right back. When it's done, it's going to look like this. And now we're ready to head on to the second round. So for this round, we are going to make some 2 patch blocks. We are going to begin with 2 of our fabric T pieces. These will become the little Irish chains on the sides. So we're going to take 2 of those pieces and 2 of our background square pieces. These are fabric O pieces, and we are going to sew them together into pairs. So we'll just place them right sides together and sew down one side on each of those pairs. Then you are going to take your 2 pairs and you are going to press the seam allowance towards the fabric T square, the one that's not the background fabric. And what that's going to do is help with nesting the seams again when we go to make our 2 patch block. So we're going to rotate one, so that the fabric T-squares are on opposite sides from each other. And then we are going to put them right sides together, and we're going to nest those seams right up against one another, line up those edges, and then sew along this long edge to create our 4-patch block. So you are going to make 4 of these blocks, and then you are going to sew one, well, you're going to take 2 of them and sew them on both sides of one bat block. And that will create the accent strips for 2 sides of our next round. So these will have, you'll have 2 bat blocks with 2 2-patch squares sewn on either side. And you want to make sure when you are positioning these 2-patch squares that the fabric that is meant to be the Irish chain, your accent fabric T, is to the top of your 2-patch and closest to the bat. So you can see how on this side, my fabric T-square is on the top left, and on the opposite side, it's on the top right. And that way it creates that mirror image all the way around. So once you have your 2 patches sewn on the two of your bat blocks, then we are going to add our next round to our center. So see if we can do this without adjusting the camera this time, and we'll adjust it for the next round. So to begin this next round, you are going to take 2 of your bat blocks and you are going to sew them on either side of the center of your quilt here. Once you have those sewn into place, and then once you sew those on, you are going to press the seam allowances towards this sashing fabric. And when you press, when you add your 2 patches on here, follow the directionality that is stated on the pattern and press your seam allowances towards the 2 patch blocks. So once you have your bats on either side of that center, then we are going to take our row. We're going to pretend these are already sewn together, and we are going to add our bat / 2-patch blocks to both the top and the bottom of our center medallion. And you can see how these 3 accent fabric squares are all lined up, which gives us that fun little Irish chain feel to it. So I'm going to take these to my machine and add this next round, adjust the camera, and then I'll come back and we will finish up the last round of our Batty Pumpkins Table Topper. Now that we've finished this second round, we are ready for the third and final round. And this is where we add the pumpkins. This row is really fun to make. Now I do want to clarify, there is one little change that I have made to this pattern that is different than the original. The original pumpkin row that is written in the pattern looks like this, where you have the 3 pumpkins with 2 spaces in between, and the pumpkin and the star block are right next to each other. I love how this looks. There is nothing wrong with it, but I did want to try a different spacing. So for this time, this version, I narrowed the inside blocks spacing just a little bit and added a little row to the outside. So if you would like to make this change as well, I will have it in the show notes, the different the changes that I've made to the measurements, the width of this block, and the addition of these 2 outer sides. And that is the only difference for this row versus the original pattern. So to make this row, we're going to start with our 3 pumpkin blocks. Now I have chosen to keep my pumpkin block rows because I did 3 different prints for my pumpkins. I have decided to keep the 3 pumpkins in the same order for each row. So that is what I am doing here. And then I am going to add my 2 fabric L pieces. Let me just make sure on my notes that I have the right spacing. So these are my fabric L pieces. Now, again, remember in this version, I modified the width of these by 1 inch. So I made this 1 inch narrower, the same height as in the pattern. And then I am going to add my 2 bonus L pieces on the 2 outer sides of my pumpkin blocks. Then I'm going to sew all of these together along these edges here. And then it is going to look just like this row here. Then what I'm going to do is take my fabric Q piece. Now, again, this is one that I have opted to change the fabric selection from the background fabric to a different sashing fabric, just to add a little bit of interest. The main reason I did this is I love the pink in this fabric line, and I wanted to add a little bit of that. And so I added this so that it would make a little bit more sense why I added that pink ghost fabric for my letter T, the Irish chain blocks. So you're going to take your fabric Q piece and you will sew it to the top of your pumpkin set. And you'll just put those right sides together. Now, again, if you are using anything directional for this piece, you want to make sure that you are sewing the bottom of your fabric Q piece to the top of your pumpkin row, just to make sure that all of those, well, the bottles in this case, but all of the print is facing towards the outside of your table topper. So you can see here, even on my pumpkins, the ones that have directionality to them, I made sure that they are facing to the outside. Once you have your fabric Q sewn on top of your pumpkin row, then we are going to take 2 of these and we are going to add 2 star blocks to either end of our rows here. And that will end up looking just like this. Now, I know you probably can't see the whole thing in one shot, only because I need a taller boom than I have, but that is what your row is going to look like. So you will make 2 of these, and then you will have 2 of just your pumpkin row with your fabric Q pieces on top. These 2 pieces, pumpkin rows without the stars, are going to go on the 2 sides of your quilt top, and then the 2 pumpkin rows with the stars will go on the top and bottom, and that will complete the rounds of this table topper or mini quilt. So I am going to sew those together, and I will add a picture of the finished mini quilt here at the end. Now, again, if you have any questions, I am going to put together all of this into one blog post. I will link that blog post at the end of this video, as well as you are welcome to just leave a comment here with a question or find me on Instagram at Marooney Designs. I hope you've enjoyed this fun little sew along. It's been nice and quick. This is a great fun project, and it's a great way to showcase some of those fun seasonal prints. It's a fun, easy way to add some seasonal decor and interest to your home without having to spend a ton of time. And I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed these videos, I hope you will like and subscribe to my channel. And until I see you next time, happy sewing, my friends.